Hello there, you amazing viewers and subscribers, and welcome to a new Doctor Who review for today. So, in this review is on yesterday's episode of War of the Sontarans. And was it great? Was it good? How did it continue off after that fantastic cliffhanger after last week's episode? Not very well. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy it. I think it was great. I like the Sontaran Society because I feel like so classic again, and he's a classic Sontaran, which I really enjoy. Up on the shelf with Jodie and Yaz and the TARDIS. But after that massive cliffhanger with the Flux, when it's going into the TARDIS, it's not really explained how they got out of the Flux. How did the Doctor escape from that situation? It's not really picked on, because the opening scene, we are in black and white, which really felt so much like 60s Who, with an old abandoned building, kind of like a haunted house sort of vibe going along in it. It's kind of like a flashback or something. And then, of course, the Doctor wakes up. She's in the middle of the Quarian War. Also, she meets Mary something. I can't remember her actual full name. I don't even know who she is. Apparently, she's something to do with the actual proper Quarian War, where she used to be a nurse helping the English soldiers and the Russian soldiers to repair. I know nothing apart from that war until last night, so I need to look that war up. But I really enjoyed the episode. I like the way the Doctor just talks. I'm the Doctor, this is Yaz, this is Dan. I really like the way the Doctor does that, like, kind of connected sort of thing. But then, of course, when you have them, like, investigating to find out the English are fighting Sontarans in the middle of the battlefield, and you do get some good reasons why when you have the Sontaran commander saying, I just wanted to ride a horse. Eh? When do Sontarans want to invade Earth from the past and just ride horses? No, in this episode, apparently. Right, I really enjoyed this episode. Now, of course, halfway through this episode, like the first half of it, Yaz and Dan end up disappearing with this kind of blue light, and they fade. Dan ends up being back in Liverpool with his parents, and they fight Sontarans with a Wookiee. And you do have some epic scenes, and then when Dan takes the Wookiee and he ends up fighting Sontarans that way, Yaz ends up on the planet Time, which the Doctor has no idea. The Doctor just goes, there's no planet Time, and then you have the Swan going, yet here we are. I really enjoy. Yet here we are. I like the way when he gets. We'll talk about a bit of that bit at the ending. I have watched this 4 times now since last night. I've watched it once and I rewatched it last night. I couldn't sleep at 12, so I rewatched it and from 12 till 1, and I've rewatched it again this morning. So 4 times today I've rewatched War of the Sontarans. I think it is a fantastic story. I really enjoyed it. Now, when you have the epic scene of the Doctor saying to Yaz, I'm coming to find you. Do you promise? Yes. And the Doctor runs to the TARDIS. The TARDIS has got no doors because something is very, very wrong with the TARDIS. It refuses to allow the Doctor in with no doors and stuff. So the Doctor basically ends up hanging around with Mary something. I can't remember an actual last name. Now, I like the bit when you have the Doctor talking to the Sontaran commander, and you have that very, very fantastic callback to the Time Warrior, which is the John Pertwee story from season 11, which is Sarah Jane's first story. And you have the Sontaran going, Commander Lynx first landed on its soil, and he named his planet under the Sontaran law, like that. I like the way you have that callback to Lynx. Now, Lynx is the very first Sontaran, and I do have him up here. So, this is the Sontaran you hear them mention, which is Lynx. Now, the person that plays Lynx, or in Classic Who, it was also the same actor that played Steyr in the Sontaran Stratagem. Where is it? Where is it? No, sorry. The Sontaran Experiment. You do have. So, this is Lynx, a figure of Lynx. I've put him up here because, 1, they mentioned him, and 2, he's wearing he's a proper Sontaran, and the Sontarans. Now, they finally ditched that stupid blue armor, which really didn't like in the Tenant era. That's the only thing about the Sontarans. I was glad they were back. I didn't like the blue. I glad they brought them back as colours. I like the references to links. Also, the one question I've got in my mind: where do Sontarans get so tall? They've got the two Doctors sort of syndrome going on here. When the two Sontarans we had in the two Doctors are really, really tall, and Sontarans, if you watch Lynx and other stuff, like Lynx style, and the ones that invade Gallifrey, they're like very, very short. And then in the two Doctors, they just go very, very tall. In the Tenant era, they go short again, and they go tall again in this story. So Sontarans have a bit of trouble with a bit of height going on here. And also, the one thing I want to know, how does the Sontarans have time travel? Because the Sontarans never had time travel. So, but somehow, in the Sontaran ships, they've got some sort of time experiments going on. They're fluctuating from time. They travel from Liverpool into the past. I have no idea how on earth that the Sontarans have got time, like the control, that they can actually travel through time. I've got no idea how they've done that. That's the whole point of the two Doctors, with Death Starry, Jacini, and Shockeye. Well, Death Starry and Jacini probably going, oh yeah, you can have the Time Lord's machine. God, we will be the first Sontarans to have a time lord, to have a time capsule. That was the whole point of the two Doctors. The Sontarans don't know how to mess around with time. And then, of course, in this episode, they mess around with time. Their ships are full of time. How do they get how does the Sontarans end up having time travels going on in their spaceships? That's the one thing I don't really understand. How did the Sontarans get time travel? Because the only time they tried to get their hands on time travel was in the two Doctors. That is something that hasn't been explained. Like, as well as, like, how did the Doctor, Yaz, and Dan and the TIEs escape from the Flux at the end of that cliffhanger? That's the one thing I have to say. That's the one thing I'm literally like, how have they got time travel? The Sontarans never had time travel. Even the Doctor says Sontarans can't have time travel. And what the hell has happened to the Rutans? Because these Sontarans don't even mention the Rutans. There's supposed to be a war that lasted 50,000 years, last time the Doctor mentioned it to them. And they're not... There's no mention of the Rutans. The Doctor is the Sontarans' archenemy. The Doctor isn't the Sontarans' archenemy. She, or he, whether you look at the possessive, is just an enemy of the Sontarans. Not the enemy of the Sontarans. The enemy of the Sontarans is the Rutans. And what the hell happened? There was no, like, mention about the Rutans, no mention about the war and stuff. They're literally just gone to Earth. They're making Earth a Sontaran base and stuff, which is very, I thought, yeah, okay, they invaded the planet just before the Leviathan went around with a massive shield that blocked out, that made Earth go completely dark for 3 minutes. They managed to get through, invade Liverpool and everything else, but how on earth did they have the time travel stuff going on? Even though, like, when you have Dan, like, being rescued by the dog creature Kastavi, coming into the rescue saying that is my human, and he kills the Sontarans. But how on earth? Because even though they, like, pilot the Sontaran ship into the rest of the fleet, which caused a big massive explosion and should have erased the Sontarans from time, but then in the Crimean War, the Doctor has got the Sontarans to retreat by messing around with the gases that the Sontarans need to survive. She ends up messing around with that and telling the commander, you better leave now. Yeah. So the Sontarans end up retreating, and then you somehow, while you have that going on with the retreating, and then you got that scene going on with Dan and the Kastavi flying that Sontaran ship, make into the rest of the fleet, and then they all just blow up in Liverpool, which means Sontarans should have evaded. They should not even be there. But then again, in the Crimean War, they're just there, but the ship's about to leave until that idiot human ends up lightning the match and blows up the entire Sontaran fleet. It makes no sense. How, if they were supposed to erase from time, how are they still in the Chameleon? Now, I love the fact that the TARDIS materialized to the Doctor, and then because again she wasn't going to allow the Doctor in, and the Doctor has says, "It's me, please let me in," and then all of a sudden the doors like proper appear, and then she goes and meets Dan. Anyway, meanwhile, while all that's going on with the Sontarans, between the Doctor in the Communal War, Dan in Liverpool fighting Sontarans, you got all that going on. You do have Yaz on the planet Time. She meets Vardin from the previous story that we see, who's also in the Flux, but it's not escaped. It's not explained how he survived somehow. When you got all those planets and stuff being ripped apart in the Flux, and then you see his shuttle being caught in the TARDIS, and there's no explanation how they all escaped. But Yaz ends up going to the planet Time. They want help where these statue people things end up blowing up, but they were replaced because the Swarm and his sister with the black dude, not black dude, the guy with the like black wear with the silver, with the gold things going on, and then this Swarm ends up putting Yaz and Vardin in between the two statues so time can run through them, and then you have that epic line going, I wonder how long they could last with time running through their heads. I really enjoyed that's another part of a cliffhanger. I was like, seriously, you're just not going to explain it? You're just going to wait until next week? Well, until next Sunday, which I'm really looking forward to, because episode 3 looks amazing by the trailer. I do love the trailer. But War of the Sontarans, yes, I think it's great. If I was going to rank this, it will probably be an 8 out of 10. Just because of Sontarans. Yes, I love the fact they mentioned Commander Lynx, who, as I said, was the first Sontaran that encountered the Doctor in the John Pertwee story, which I've got up here in the nice lineup. So here it is. So this is the very first story, and this is the callback we have mentioned to Lynx that ended up crash landing in the middle-aged Earth, in the dark times of Earth. To be honest with you, it depends how you look at it. In a way, so you do have that epic callback and stuff, but you do have some good stuff. And then, of course, what are those things that's sticking through the TARDIS at the end of the episode? The Doctor goes, they weren't there a minute ago. And then suddenly the TARDIS goes wrong. She takes off, and then she materializes where she's got the Swarm waiting for them and everything else and bloody da. I don't want to give too much away in case you haven't seen it. But I have to say, this episode, 8 out of 10. It's enjoyable. You've got some great stuff. I like the fact they're back wearing the Sontaran armor. There's some funny stuff in it with the Sontarans. Like, I wanted to ride a horse. I found that absolutely hilarious. And the bit with Dan, when you have the Kazavian shoot like there with his gun, he goes, how have you been fighting him? With a walkie. What? I love that bit. I really enjoy this episode. I didn't enjoy this as much as I did for the Halloween Apocalypse, because Halloween Apocalypse I thought was absolutely amazing and stuff, but this one is not as great as the first episode, but it's still very much enjoyable. It's still very much good. I mean, 8 out of 10 knows I've actually enjoyed it. So let me know in the comments what you think of Doctor Who War of the Sontarans. Do you agree with me that it is very confusing to know how the Sontarans have managed to get their hands on time travel when they never had it in the first place? Which is really not explained. And how did the TARDIS, the Doctor, Yaz and Dan and Vardin ended up escaping from the Flux at the end of that cliffhanger? We don't really know a lot that's happened in it. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. How did this escape? What did you think of the story? How do you rank the episode? And join me for more Doctor Who content, possibly tomorrow. And join me for next week when I do a review on episode 3, Once Upon a Time.